Good day, all your wonderful people, and welcome to the program Changing the World with me, Lorette Dye. It is a privilege to share this time with you. I am very excited about this moment in time. You know, we as people try to do the right thing. We try to do our best, and life happens, and it's not always so easy. Today I want to talk to you about John 15, verse 5 and 6. So in the meantime, you can open your Bibles there if you want to follow it with me. Exactly how we should live, by lifting God up, by glorifying Him. Previously, we talked about being close to God, sitting at His feet, searching for His peace and for His will in our lives. The Bible teaches us that we must always talk to God. And people think, but it is impossible. I can't talk to God always. I have a life. I have to do things. I have to talk to other people. I have to work. I have to make food, look after my family. Life is extremely busy and full. How on earth is it possible to talk to God always? But you don't need to become someone that is completely set apart. That is also not what God is asking from us. But talking to Him always is like there's a friend that you have that is always walking next to you. So even if you are very busy, you can say something to your friend. You can acknowledge your friend. You can converse with your friend. You don't need to withdraw. You will never walk next to a friend or have someone that shadow you and go with you through your day and completely ignore them. You will talk to them about what you do, maybe even explain that, maybe tell them what you feel, what you think, what you're going to do next. And that is exactly what God is asking from us. He is asking that we acknowledge Him as someone that is walking beside us all the time, every day, every moment. And in that, we just talk to Him about our lives. My daughter is going through a very difficult time at the moment. And what I said to her was, all that God is expecting of you is that you are honest with Him. He knows already what you feel. He knows already what you are going through and your fears and your resistance and your guilt or whatever it is that you might be feeling. It's not a secret to God. You are not hiding something from Him because that is not possible. But if you don't share that with Him and if you don't talk to Him about it and call Him in to help you and be the one that carries you through this and guide you through this, then you are pushing Him aside. Then you are treating Him as if He is a person right next to you, but you are ignoring Him. We sometimes feel ashamed of what we feel, but with God we don't need to. We don't need to feel ashamed of our emotions. Even if it is emotions that we as human beings don't see as good or nice emotions, that's fine. God understands. He made you to be a human being. He made you with those emotions. And He understands what you are going through. But He's also waiting for you to choose to share that with Him. In John 15 verse 5 and 6 we read, I am the vine and you are the branches. If you stay joined to me and I to you, you will produce plenty of fruit. But separated from me, you won't be able to do anything. And in 6, if you don't stay joined to me, you will be like a branch that has been thrown out and has dried up. All the dead branches like that are gathered up, thrown into the fire, and burnt. This is a beautiful part of the Bible. I want to stop for a moment and talk to you about the meaning of this. If you look at a vine, it has to be stable in the ground. Every year it is cut back to almost nothing. After that, it starts growing again and becomes bigger and carries a lot of fruit. But without a branch being embedded in the vine, it can't bear any fruit. And without being cutting back, it can't bear fruit. Now we need to be embedded in God like those branches. God is the vine. He is our roots. He is where our life comes from. And this part clearly tells us that without God, we are nothing. It says in verse 5, but separated from me, you won't be able to do anything. We talked about being close to God, finding His will. We talked about talking to God always, to understand that He's always with us and to acknowledge Him and have that relationship with Him. And now we are talking about that without Him, we are nothing. If we try to do things our way, if we forget to have that relationship and connection with God, if we stop reaching out to Him, if we stop sharing with Him everything we think and feel, and we become people that go ahead of Him or in a different direction, just kind of take our eyes off Him, like we spoke before that Joseph and Mary did with Jesus when He was 12 years old, where they continued with their journey and they left Him behind. If we do that, we can't be embedded in the vine anymore. We become a branch that try to operate on our own. And we forget that we are nothing without God. In verse 5, it also says, if you stay joined to me and I to you, there's that relationship. It comes from both sides. And that is what we need if we truly want to have a wonderful relationship with God. If we say we are Christians, we need to have that relationship with God. I want to share a story with you next about a time that I've been in China. Now, God has taken me to many different places and on many different roads, and I truly believe with all of my heart that the journey that God is taking an individual on is for a specific reason and purpose. And with every person, the purpose is different. In other words, the plan that God has for me is not the plan that He has for you. And that's okay. But everything that you go through or that you would experience, good or bad, difficult or easy, is for a reason. In other words, I truly believe that God is in control. We will talk about this more in the future. But for now, I want to focus on something that God allowed in my life to happen. In 1995, God opened the door for me to go to China unofficially as a missionary, because in those days they were much stricter than today, and no missionaries were allowed. Never mind that, no Westerners were allowed in China in those days. And also, no Bibles were allowed. It was against the law to talk to anyone about God. It was against the law to share any Christian material. And you could go to prison. But God opened this door for me, and I was able to go to China. And one of the things that I've experienced while I was there is that because of the danger, we have danger around us all the time. They are evil. They are bad people. In that situation, I was more aware that there are potential danger. And maybe that caused me to do something that we should do in our normal life anyway. And that is, I didn't make a decision without consulting God. I was very specific. I asked if I should smuggle in material and Bibles, if I should go a certain route, what the time should be that I should do it. And I asked God all these questions. I wanted His guidance and to be in His will with every single step. Now, I just want to stop myself there for a moment. I believe that is how we should live our lives anyway. We should consult God and ensure that we are in His will all the time. Just because we feel comfortable, just because we feel safe, we tend to run our own race. We tend to carry on with our lives and kind of see God as someone that is there when we need Him. In other words, when it's convenient for us. But I believe we should consult Him and seek His will in everything. Now, in that moment and in that time, I did. And the most amazing thing happened. I was on my knees, I was praying, I was asking God all these questions, and He answered me. But His answer was not at all what I expected, as many times in life after that. God, I learned, is not exactly how we think He is. With our human minds, we try to understand God. And I realized, but we have a misperception of God often. We often try to put Him in a box, and we miss the greatness of God. And this day, He gave me an answer. But it was an answer that I didn't expect. He said to me, "This is not important." It was such a shock to me that I basically sat back and I had no words for a moment. And then I went back to praying and I said to God, "But it is important. There are people that are dying without You, that are living without You, that will never know You, that need You. And I have this opportunity to go out of the country." In that days, I could go to Hong Kong. It wasn't part of China yet. I would get material and I will smuggle it back into the country. And I said to God, "But how can He say it's not important?" So I started praying again and I asked the same things. And God gave me exactly the same answer. He said to me, "It is not important." Again, I sat back. For a moment, I had no words. I didn't know where to go from here. And this time, I went back praying and I asked God, what does He mean? What is He trying to say to me? Because I don't understand it. And God answered me and He said to me, "You do what your hand finds to do, the work that I give to you. Just know that praying for this country and for its people is more important than smuggling in Bibles. And that was a very eye-opening moment for me. I realized that if we search God's will, we often have a picture of what is important, what is necessary, what is good. We often have a picture of what it means to do God's work. And that often causes good-meaning Christians to run ahead of God, to do it their way, to do the things that looks right and looks good. And then they feel so good about themselves. But you can do something that seems godly, but it is still not in the will of God. There's a difference between doing and keeping yourself busy with things that look good and look right and maybe even bring you acknowledgement, and doing the will of God. We need that relationship with God. We need to sit at His feet. We need to find His will and stop looking through our own human eyes. God looks with different eyes, and He wants to open our spiritual eyes that we can see and that we can be in His will. Now, based on everything that we talked about up to now today, I know Christians want to live right. They want to be good children of God. And maybe everything that I told you makes you feel, I am not perfect enough. I am not good enough. You see, in church, and even today here, we often talk about what we should do. I said things like, you should seek the will of God. You should have a close relationship with God. And sometimes that causes people to look at themselves and decide, but I am not reaching that mark. I am not good enough. I believe that I have wonderful news for you today. God made you, you. He made you a human being. He made you in a certain way. And I fully believe that being ourselves is part of glorifying God. You are the creation of God. And as the perfect and beautiful creation of God, you give Him honor if you are just yourself. We don't need to be something special or something different. We don't need to be perfect for that matter. We can relax, we can breathe, and just sit back and allow God to do the work. And with that I mean you can be you. God made you to be you, and therefore being you is your first point of action. And then become an open vessel that God can work in you and through you. It doesn't take extra effort. It takes and it requires that you relax, that you give over. It's not trying harder. It is giving over to who you are and who God made you to be, and give over to God that He can do a perfect work in you. How great is the God that we serve. As we get to the end of our time together, I want to share with you this last verse. Philippians 4 verse 7. And because you belong to Christ Jesus, God's peace will stand guard over all your thoughts and feelings. His peace can do this far better than our human minds. You listen to Changing the World with me, Lorette Dye. And remember, changing the world starts with you and with someone that chooses to live fully sold out to God. Don't let this day go by without laughing, dancing, singing, and sitting at God's feet. I am, as always, grateful for this time that you spent with me. Be safe and be blessed.